Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. I hope you're all doing well and you'll be watching me from different part of the world. This is me, your host, Muhammad Lukman. You're watching me right away from Saudi Arabia. And today we have a very special guest right away from United States of America and Her Excellency Dr. Rachel. Sincerely, she's an associate director. She's very experienced. We are very happy to have her in our session, and inshallah, we will be having a very great discussions right away. Before that, I would like to invite everyone who is joining us today in today's podcast, and we're very obliged and very grateful to all of you who will be just joining us today podcast, and it's gonna be very interesting and full of knowledge, and we will try to learn a lot of things from her. And of course, we are happy that we will be sharing knowledge, experiences, different things related to English field. And we're very grateful that this podcast has brought to you up by TESOL TalentHut program, and it's academy of different teachers, professors, professionals coming close to each other, and we are sharing different experiences right here related to different fields. So we're very happy to have her on this platform. So before we proceed, let me just briefly introduce her background. Dr. Richard Tasari is Associate Director at the Center for Advanced Teaching and Learning through Research at the Northeastern University in the United States of America. She earned her education degree in curriculum, which is highly influential teaching, learning, and leadership from Northeastern University, and most importantly, a master in education in TESOL from Rhode Island College. Her doctoral research examined how storytelling in TESOL teacher education can foster asset-based perspective of culture and linguistic. And yes, she has previously worked in TESOL teacher education, which is something like very interesting. And she has served as a director of English language learning, as assistant dean of the college at Brown University. Moreover, Dr. Tansali has provided comprehensive educational consulting in different schools, different districts, and she has been invited as a faculty member in different workshops in different university and schools. So her specialty includes a lot of diverse experiences, and I mentioned earlier that we're very happy and obliged that we will be trying to learn a lot of things from her experience and research and her special research specialty in the AI. And of course, it's the ongoing trend in this modern world. And of course, we'll be trying to learn a lot of things related to artificial intelligence with human centric pedagogy, as she has served with the Russian University professors supporting departments of the state. So, thank you very much once again. And we are so happy to have you right here. So it's over to you. Can you please just let us know briefly to the audience, and then we'll be moving ahead with different question answer sessions to discuss more in detail.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much for the warm welcome and the lovely introduction. My name, as you said, is Rachel Toncelli. And I, at this point, have over 25 years of experience working as an educator. The vast majority of that time was working as a language educator, specifically an English language educator, or overseeing programs relating to English language education for multilingual students. And I also, as you mentioned, have worked in teacher preparation programs, specifically preparing teachers to work with multilingual students from really all over the world. And so, most recently, my research into how we integrate AI into teaching and learning has just brought me to so many exciting places because it's been such an opportunity to collaborate with educators across the world. And it sort of helped me shift into my new role, which, as you mentioned, is Associate Director for the Center for Advancing Teaching and Learning through Research, where I really work with faculty across disciplines, not just language educators, to think about what does great teaching and learning look like. And so that's just a little bit more about me. Happy to take your questions. Excited to get into this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. It's really, really inspiring for me as well, for our audience, as our audience are watching. You will be watching from different part of the world, of course, from different culture background, from different, I would say, from subject background. But this topic is specifically covers everything because it's a very diverse and a broad topic. Like anyone can come from different backgrounds, can link and relate this topic with their
For sure.
professional career so far and so good. Perfect. That's really inspired and it's wonderful introduction. And thank you very much. Like we are now moving toward the question answer session. So can you tell me about your journey into education and what inspired you to become a special educator, specifically in your area of interest?
Yeah, yeah, I'd be happy to. So it's kind of a funny story because I became an educator somewhat by accident. And in my early 20s, as you mentioned, I'm in the United States of America. I'm American. But in my early 20s, I was in graduate school in Italy, and I was actually studying anthropology. And I loved being in Italy so much that when I finished, I really needed work. I wanted to stay there. And the easiest way to stay there as a native speaker of English was to become an English teacher. And so that's what I did. So it was sort of a means to an end initially. And from the moment I began teaching, I realized that this was my calling, how much I enjoyed being in the space where you could partner with students, think about their goals, help them along their journey towards their goals. I loved that relationship with students. To me, teaching is always about connecting with other humans, and language is really learning to connect in other languages, I think is an incredibly exciting and important thing. Um, in terms of people just understanding each other better and getting along better and bringing in different ideas. So, anyway, I sort of accidentally became an English language teacher to stay in Italy, realized I loved it, and then eventually came back to the States. And as you had mentioned in the intro, I got a master's in TESOL and continued teaching across a variety of contexts, international students from really all over the world, and then went on to get my doctorate to just continue this exciting work.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So accidentally you become an educator and teacher,
Yes,
right?
yes. But
Yeah,
it's
that's
stuck, right?
great.
It's been a long time.
Sure. Okay, so it's so like a very long journey. It's a very vast experience and a very diverse experience in your area, specifically in teaching, specifically. So, what major challenge you face as an educator or as a teacher teaching somewhere to the student of other languages, or what culture like a challenge you face? Like we can face a culture shock, of course. For example, if I'm teaching somewhere in African countries or any other countries, definitely my culture is different from them, and their culture is different from us. So, what challenge do you face, and how did you cope with them as you become accidentally teacher? But of course, you're a very experienced teacher. So,
Now I am, right?
how did you manage?
Yeah.
How do you manage, by the way, that stress?
Yeah, definitely. That's a that's I think one of the most exciting challenges is how do you teach language? Particularly, it's one thing to teach language, say, for example, when I was my first teaching experience, I was teaching English, but I was in Italy and all of my students spoke Italian.
Yeah.
And that's, one kind of particular challenge. It's another thing entirely to teach a class of students from all over the world with a really rich and diverse linguistic background.
Yes.
It offers sort of a different challenge, but both of them are wonderful challenges. How do I overcome that, like the cultural differences? I think for me, what's really important is always recognizing, or at least working to recognize my own cultural lens, the way I view the world through, like as an American. What does that mean about the way I view the world and how I value it and how I communicate and how much information I provide, how long are my sentences, how much detail, all of that is cultural, right?
Yeah.
And remembering that that's just one cultural lens that's embedded in me because of where I was raised.
Yes.
It's not the right one. There's no right or wrong cultural lens. There are just different lenses. And I think that's a really important starting point to be very clear with students
Mhm.
that their cultural and linguistic lenses are as valuable as mine,
Yeah.
and that together we can be really explicit about why we're communicating in certain ways and how we're communicating. Um, and I think in my role helping international students at the American University, it was really just trying to help them understand what were the expectations. Because, there are differences in the way you'll communicate in a classroom between a student and a professor in different countries, obviously,
Obviously.
right?
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
don't name those things and make them clear and transparent,
Yeah.
both students and faculty can misunderstand each other. And I think that's a big challenge. I think it's really important to make sure that you work to understand the cultural perspective that everyone's bringing to the
Yeah.
relationship.
Perfect, perfect. It's so amazing, and I'm again just following up with your questions and answer. Of course, that you have a very vast experience, and you did a very great job in your in specifically in your area. So we have a very rare professionals and experts in our field that has a very vast and diverse experience, and you're one of them. And I'm highly grateful on
Thank
behalf
you.
of the team and the audience, of course. As the topic is, can AI replace the teachers, and why human connection still matters in education, of course. So,
Mhm.
as you have very vast experience, you have been an administrator, you a consultant, and of course, you have been a faculty developer. So, how have these different roles, experiences, shaped your perspectives in education, and specifically in your area?
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you. Um, I think that every time we have to change what we're doing, we grow. And so being a teacher and then an administrator and then a consultant and a faculty developer, like wearing all these different hats has allowed me to think about teaching and learning from each of those perspectives. And you have different opportunities in each of those roles. You have different funding, you have different requirements, but ultimately each of those perspectives adds to a full portrait. So I think every time I've had to learn to think about teaching and learning from a different perspective, I've learned more about it. And I think the biggest conclusion I would say is that anyone who works in any capacity in relationship to students and learning, there is a shared priority. And the shared priority is that we are all working in service of our students
Yeah.
and to support our students and help them learn and grow. And so I think having different roles helped me grow as a professional by offering me all of those different perspectives. But it also helped me think about how to navigate systems because, we all work within different institutional systems. And when you've played different roles, I think you have a better understanding of how to maneuver for the benefit of your students, because ultimately that's what we're all working for.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. It's a wonderful experience and wonderful answers as you have just given right here, just based on your experience and all the background. Well, your research is specifically focusing on storytelling,
Mm.
TESOL, teacher education. So, what specifically motivated you to this area of research?
Yeah, I was motivated to think about storytelling and teacher education for a couple of reasons.
Yeah,
Um, First, before I worked in teacher education, I was working really closely with international students and trying to help them feel more connected to the American University campus and also trying it simultaneously to help them improve their writing or improve their confidence in their writing, because often their writing was already quite good
yeah,
in English. And so I started a project in which we developed a blog for international student writers where they would tell the stories of their experiences. And then we got international student artists to create art around those stories. And we would have luncheons where we would invite the student author to tell their story of their experience, and students from all over the world, including the American students, would come. And I sort of discovered that stories are an incredible way to connect people and to build empathy across difference, to find what's common about humanity. And that's not a discovery of mine, because I later learned as I began doing research that a lot of people know that humans make meaning through
right.
story, that we are a species that, engages in storytelling.
Yes.
And so then fast forward years later, I was working in teacher education and I was working with teachers who were already in the classroom, but who were coming back for a master's degree to be certified to work in TESOL, to work with multilingual students.
Hmm.
And I was noticing that a lot of these teachers were monolingual English speakers. And I do think being bilingual
Yeah.
automatically gives you more empathy and understanding for the language learning experience.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean monolinguals can't be great teachers. But I
Mm-hmm.
was noticing that these monolingual teachers were finishing their master's degree and they were sort of able to talk the talk about um, the resources students brought to the classroom, excuse me.
Hmm.
But I noticed that they were still holding on to some deficit perspective, some negative framing of who these international students were in their language classrooms. And so I wanted to kind of take that apart and figure it out. So that launched my research into storytelling in teacher education. And so it involved exposing teachers to just stories of the lived experiences of students, of immigrants, um,
Yeah.
and, remember how I was talking about how we all look at the world through a cultural lens? My goal in that project was for a moment when you're in someone else's story, you sort of suspend your lens and you look at the world through theirs.
Yeah.
And when you leave that story behind, I hope that your lens is expanded. And so that was the reason
That's what
I engaged in that research.
became a storyteller in your research. That's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, wonderful. So like magnificently and explain it. And this is what our learners and educators who are watching us right here. Of course, they will be having a lot of knowledge about it, and they will be trying to learn different things in their specific area. So that's what the thing is. It matters for different educators. Of course, we are not perfect at all. Yes, as you mentioned, that bilingual teacher cannot be perfect at all. Of course, we can make errors and mistakes,
Everybody
but
can make
working,
mistakes.
yes, working with internationals and making a block something, as you mentioned, that can just excel you towards learning new things and innovative ideas or just introducing new concepts, new theories, and all stuff. As we are living in the era of artificial intelligence, and our whole podcast topic discussion is covering these things, and we, of course, our whole discussions will be revolving about artificial intelligence and all stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, as associate director, as in your area of research, it's mentioned in a biography that like what are the most common challenge as a faculty member brings to you today in this modern world
Yeah.
as director specifically?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think that the most common challenges that faculty members bring are one, not surprising, AI related, right? AI is really forcing us to think about how we need to innovate uh, teaching, learning, and assessment,
Mhm.
um, and innovate it quickly. And so that would be the first one. And the second one is actually a lot of faculty are coming and wanting to talk about how do we support better connection with students in a world that is so technological, and not just AI, but also social media, cell phones, right? Sort of the instant gratification and the fear of missing out if you're not connected to that phone. That all kind of invades the teaching and learning space in some way and can be damaging to the trusting relationship between teachers and students. So I'd say the two biggest challenges are AI related and that like how do we build connection, human connection in this technological world.
Perfect. How do you personally approach leading and supporting educators during times of uncertainty uh, in when you are inside the department or teaching somewhere or having
Yeah.
research? Yes.
Yeah, that's a great question because we are living in uncertain times for
Yeah.
sure and
Yeah.
for so many reasons.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really important to begin by acknowledging the uncertainty and discomfort, perhaps, with the uncertainty.
Very
You know, in a research project I did with a colleague not too long ago, the paper we ended up publishing, we called a love-hate relationship. And it was all about how faculty were really experiencing a sense of loss of the things that they used to love about teaching and learning because AI was forcing us to change everything, right? And there was a real sense of loss. When I'm doing faculty development workshops or working in consultation with faculty or with a community of other educators, I think it's really important to acknowledge, like,
Yeah.
okay, the change can be difficult.
Yeah. Yeah.
We may be excited about some parts of this change. Maybe it was long needed, and we
Exactly.
may be really upset about it, and we may be
Of
really
course.
worried about it. And all of that is legitimate, and we can hold
Yeah.
space for all of
Yeah.
that to then move forward. I think that's a really important starting point to acknowledge that all of that is valid, but we still have to find a path forward together.
Yeah, of course. And be a change maker cannot be an easy job and task, but yes, we can be a change maker at some point. So that's what actually it helped us to learn new things. Be a change
Yeah.
maker, and this is a slogan, of course. Be a change maker, but during
Yeah.
uncertain time and uncertainty, of course, we can face such kind of, as you mentioned earlier. Well,
Yeah.
what specific strategy you found most effective in your teaching while maintaining teaching faculties as a leader? Yeah, yeah.
Specific strategy for leading change or for
Yeah.
integrating AI?
Integrating AI
Yeah.
alongside with the integration of AI.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. I think the most important strategy for me has been um, using AI transparently with students, right? And encouraging faculty to do that same thing. Because I think when we're thinking, there's so much worry about, oh, is AI going to kill this assignment or academic integrity, honesty, ethics, all of these like legitimate things.
Yeah,
But we have to help. Our job as educators is to help students learn how to use AI as a tool and learn how to discern when it is something that advances their learning
yeah,
and supports their learning, and
exactly.
when it outsources their learning, and when using it is abusive in a way, in the sense that it's detrimental to their learning because they're not doing engaging in the thinking they need to be engaging in. And so I think that as educators, our responsibility is to invite AI into the classroom when it can be useful.
Yeah,
Um, Use it with our students, and that can lead to sometimes unexpected moments in the classroom.
yeah,
Evaluate it with students. What's good about it? What's not good about it? Where do we see evidence of bias? How can this help us? When should we not use it? Right. So engaging in these transparent conversations with our students in real time. If you want to encourage students to reach to AI when it's a learning tool or a learning support, but not otherwise,
mhm,
you need to help them develop that judgment and use it with them. And you also need to open the door to conversations. There's been so much noise around, oh, all students are going to use AI for
yeah, yeah,
cheating.
yeah,
And you know what? Some students might. Some students have always cheated, right? But
yeah,
most students care about their learning, right? And so if you can bring it in and have these conversations and not make it taboo or prohibited to talk about it, then you can really help them think about the purpose of their education, what their learning goals are, and reaching for it when it makes sense. And that also helps you, I think, as an educator, think about what am I asking my students to do? Because if it's just kind of busy work that they could just have AI generate something, and AI can generate anything,
yeah, of
then maybe
course.
I also need to be thinking about what am I asking them to do outside of class? What am I asking them to do in class
Yeah,
that encourages active learning, experimenting with ideas, collaboration. And so maybe it's okay if they use AI to outside of my class to engage with readings and video and ask questions and then come back and use it and apply it. And so the classroom has should have always been a place of active learning. I think now it's the only path forward, right? If we're not actively engaging together and exchanging ideas and testing theories, et cetera, in class, then what are we doing, right? So that was a big answer to your question. I don't know if I answered it well enough or if you want to
no, yeah.
come back with a
Yeah, yeah,
follow-up.
yeah, yeah. I'm just following up with your answers. It's a brilliant, by the way, brilliantly. You just explained it in a very short way, and you explained all the major factors that students can face and educators usually may face during the AI classroom management. As you mentioned in your speech, that bringing AI to the classroom can be somehow I would say not good. I would say not good because AI has a lot of benefits, but it has advantages and disadvantages. Sometimes advantages outweigh disadvantages. So, what I believe that using AI inside the classroom can be helpful, but majority of the students, specifically in this era, majority of the students, don't you think they are just totally, ultimately relying on AI rather than thinking or just putting some, pressure on their mind just to generate new ideas? As you mentioned, that it's highly important that to just generate new ideas, to work and making a blog, to think about the topics as educators is doing inside the class. But outside of if they are searching for something like reading or research or any home task or any assignment given by the teacher, but if they are totally relying, don't you think that they are just not doing good with themselves, or in future they may face problem no matter what we are doing inside the classroom?
Absolutely. If they're totally relying on it, then, right, they're not necessarily building the foundational knowledge or skill or their independence to think critically on their own. And that's actually one of the reasons why I say bring it into the classroom,
Yeah,
teach them how to use it, and also have those conversations about um, what the purpose of learning is. Why are we here? What are we trying to achieve
yeah,
in this particular activity?
exactly.
Is this helping us or not? I think those conversations are really important. But so, for example, um, I noticed I was teaching a research writing class to graduate students, and I noticed that I was getting what felt like too much AI writing and not enough of the voice of my students. And so when I see a problem like that, I bring it into the classroom.
Yeah,
And so I had all of the graduate students reading something relevant to each of their individual research projects.
yeah.
And I opened a shared Google Doc. They had read and annotated something at home.
Mhm.
I gave them, 15 or 20 minutes at the start of class to write a summary of what they read
Yeah,
in real time summary writing.
yeah.
Then we put all of their summaries into AI and we asked for writing feedback.
Uh-huh.
And we
Very nice.
put the
Yeah.
feedback into the same shared doc. So we had, 10 summaries, 10 sets of feedback. And then I asked them to go back and look at the feedback and look at the rewrite that AI did and to highlight in green language that they liked, that captured their ideas well, that was interesting phrasing, and highlight in red anything that felt was different from their meaning, didn't sound like what they wanted to sound like, or didn't sound like them, or simply that they didn't like. It created a permission structure for them to not like something that AI produced, because often people who are reaching to AI for writing support in English is because maybe they lack confidence in their own writing.
Yeah.
And anyway, then they noticed there was a lot they liked and a lot they didn't like. But then the most important step was I asked them all to read each other's summaries that the AI had produced. And
Good.
even though their research was in totally different areas, all 10 of these summaries sounded like the same person wrote them. And that was an aha moment for the students where they realized, wow, we get lost in this equation. Who we are, our voices, the way we want to communicate gets lost. And so that was a moment where they realized, okay, we can use it to tweak our writing, to fine tune some sentences, to get maybe some good phrasing that could be helpful to us, but we can't just turn it over because we lose the ability to grow and we get lost. And so that's kind of like an example of when you see, I think, students maybe not using it correctly, the best thing to do is not punish them. It's do it with them, show them why it's not a good way, what gets lost if they outsource too much thinking to AI.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, when I work in faculty development, I think about things like that too, right?
Very, very
Because
nice.
why do language learners reach for AI writing support?
Mm.
Well, you could say, oh, maybe because, some people say they're lazy, they cheat. No, no, no. Maybe they want to put their best foot forward.
Yeah.
Maybe they think that writing is better than theirs. Maybe professors who receive their writing are critique writing with an accent too
Yeah.
harshly,
Yeah.
right? And so maybe that's about the way faculty receive writing and the messaging that they give. And so I think it's a give and take on both sides, but ultimately I see so much value to just teaching this kind of judgment, discernment, critical evaluation to students. Don't assume that they know how to use these very powerful tools to support their learning. Show
Very,
them how to do it.
very well. Brilliant,
Mhm.
amazing. You cover a lot of things, by the way.
Sorry.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting. I'm really enjoying your talk. I'm really enjoying your
Thank
speech. I'm really enjoying your experiences, and I'm highly, highly grateful for it. So, moreover, let's move towards the most important area that you mentioned in your biography. That is some relational intelligence. So you
you. Yeah.
emphasize more on that. So, can you
Mhm.
a little bit explain it briefly, relational intelligence, and why is it matter in AI-driven world?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the age of AI, relational intelligence is incredibly important. It's our path forward. I think relational intelligence has always been a part of teaching and learning, and AI is forcing us to confront it more. So you asked, what is relational intelligence? Um, for me, relational intelligence is the capacity to perceive, interpret, and respond skillfully to the human dimension,
Yeah,
right? The
yeah,
people you are collaborating with, whether it's teachers and students, students and students, teachers and teachers. It's just these human relationships, right? Negotiating meaning, navigating friction, challenges, right? The thing that you never get out of AI is the challenge, right? It's programmed to be very agreeable to you. But in the real world, when you're collaborating and working and talking with other people, things aren't always as smooth, and you need to know how to navigate that. And that requires relational intelligence. It's more than just the rapport that you might have between a teacher and a student. It's really, for me, active, learnable practices, right? To help students think about their own identities, their own histories, the people who are listening to them, the people they're collaborating with, and how to negotiate potential friction and work well together. And that's particularly extra meaningful when we think about language education and communicating in languages which may not be our first language,
yeah,
and making meaning together, bridging misunderstandings, and moving forward. So it's kind of like learning to read the room.
yeah,
Who are
yeah.
you dealing with?
Very
Yeah.
important, very essential, and substantially, it's highly important to read how actually it works. And
Yeah,
according to
yeah,
that scenario and atmosphere, you just try making minds and how do you relate different things during the classroom management. This is what actually, or even in research area. So that's how
yeah,
it matters. Well,
yeah,
okay. So moving to the most important question, which is something about the future of educators.
yeah,
For a world where AI is increasingly present in a classroom, like all the way learning from different backgrounds, coming from different cultural backgrounds, I would say AI is everywhere. Like wherever you go, AI is there. And
yeah.
90% educators, even the students or the new generation who are just coming into this world, also facing a lot of uncertainties in the AI. So,
Yeah.
what programs that equip future educators that you think that can be very much helpful and prominent for them to help or increase area of interest or increase something more inside the classroom as an educator or as a director or as a research?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So when I think about teacher preparation programs specifically about preparing teachers to do this work with
yeah,
students, I think teachers need to have their own critical AI literacy. They need to understand how these AI tools work.
yeah,
Uh, um, what's good about them, what's not good about them. You need to understand where the bias can be, the stereotyping can be, particularly when you're working with culturally and linguistically diverse students, because there is a lot of that bias baked in. I mean, large language models have scraped the internet and everything that's been published by humans to develop their predictive abilities in language, which means that all of the human biases that have been written, put into writing, are present in those models. And so teachers need to understand those basics themselves. But then they also need to really see teaching as a relational art. And I think for teachers to see that, to understand how to foster relational intelligence and really active learning in the classroom, negotiating, making meaning together in, authentic ways, I think teacher education programs should model that. I think that, you know, if you want to create a teacher who's going to go out and care about these relationships and fostering classrooms where teachers know their students well and know their goals well, then teacher educators have to do that same thing, right? And they have to model it as part of the development of future teachers.
Exactly. Very pertinent. Very nice. It's absolutely full of knowledge, and this is what experienced researcher and experienced educators tackle different kind of situations with ongoing trends. All right. So the last question, which is highly important, and then we are going to be closing and finishing their podcast. What is your vision for ensuring educations remain deeply human while
Mhm.
integrating AI or the opportunities of technological innovations?
Yeah, I think I said it earlier, teaching is an act of love,
Yeah, first.
and and it always has been. But I think these rapid advancements in technology that are pushing us to change have reminded us
Mm,
that this has always been important, that these human relationships and human interaction. I mean, as a species, we are biologically driven to connect to other humans. And so educational experiences should foster that, should allow for those connections, and should be deeply, deeply human. I also think education should be deeply creative. I think that some of the things that we need to be changing about education and assignments and assessments and the way we evaluate learning, we're changing them now because of AI, but maybe we already needed to change them. Maybe they already weren't working, right? Like maybe there needs to be
right.
more student
Right.
agency in learning, more creativity.
Mhm. Just sorry to get you off. We're just running out of time. I just saw the time. I just got the
Oh
notification.
yeah.
Less than so. I'm really enjoying the session. So I'm just recording, finishing the recording, and again, I'll be just sharing a link so we could just continue it, and we will edit it. No problem.
Yeah, no problem, no problem, no problem.
I'll get these questions. Right.
Okay.
Dear audience, hope you're enjoying our conversation and discussions. And it was having a wonderful conversation and discussion with Dr. Rachel Dantoli. So she came up with a very vast experience and diverse experience, I would say. And I hope that everyone have enjoyed. And if there's any comments, any question that you have right away related to the AI or anything related to the topic that we mentioned, and we are having conversations. So yes, you can just drop your comments, and we will be back to you with the answer. So, or you can also let us know by sending questions through email or sending us message. We'll be happy to facilitate and answer you back. Thank you once again for your time and for a wonderful conversation and amazing knowledge you have in your area. So, I would like to ask you very specific questions about your international collaboration with different educators that helps different challenges or might have faced with different challenges. So, what created like international collaborations by helping educators rapidly advancing technologies, integrating with the artificial intelligence in the field of linguistic or anything that you have in your area?
Do you want to know specifically about international collaborations that I've done or why I think international collaboration is
Why you
important?
think that international collaboration is important, and how actually it addresses educational challenges that rapidly advancing technologies?
Yeah, fabulous. Um, I think international collaboration is incredibly important because I do think we have an opportunity with AI to to repair some historic inequities,
Yeah.
and to create access to information globally in ways that could be quite interesting. So I think that that's kind of an opportunity. And I don't say that like, oh, AI is perfect. Obviously, we also have a responsibility to check AI, to evaluate it critically, particularly when it comes to thinking cross-culturally, because those are places where we see some of the bias and stereotypes appear in its output. And so I think having cross-cultural eyes on the output of AI is also very important, and to ensure that we have linguistic representation in AI models and AI outputs, and not just, standard dialects of certain language. And I'm using air quotes when I say standard, because what is a standard language? That's a topic for another whole podcast that I'd love to talk about.
Very
Um,
nice.
But I think that the global collaboration is important, not only for bridging, hopefully bridging some of those inequities or repairing some of those inequities, but I think for all the reasons that I was saying, it's incredible to be a teacher of international multilingual students. We bring in so many perspectives, and having multiple perspectives on this massive human challenge,
Mhm.
this new moment for humanity. I
Yeah,
think we need all voices at the table and all perspectives. And I also think different countries are responding in interesting ways to the AI moment in terms of legal policy guidelines, regulation, some countries having really thoughtful, intentional guidelines, and others none at all. And so we can benefit from sharing what's working and what's not in our respective places to hopefully get us all
yeah,
to a really good place. And so collaboration is always important. I mean, the mantra of my entire career has been collaborate, 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 builds community with students, with
yeah,
other teachers.
yeah.
We learn so much from each other that, collaboration is always key in my mind.
Yeah, that's really influential. Yeah, it's a key role, I would say. So,
Mm.
what role do empathy, trust, cultural understanding, and most importantly, playing in a student success? So, can AI ever truly replicate these specific qualities? And of course, how do you see these kind of qualities replicating or integrating with the artificial intelligence in the field of education?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question. Like,
Yeah,
what role do empathy, trust, and cultural understanding play in student
yeah, yeah.
success? A huge role, obviously. They play a huge role. I mean, I rely a lot on the work of Felton and Lambert. They wrote a book in 2020 called Relationship Rich Education. And in that book, they talk about how student success is based on students having a meaningful web of relationships in their learning community.
Mhm.
And so that's where you get empathy and trust. And everything I was talking about in terms of teachers talking with their students about AI use, that transparency, that's also about building trust
Yeah,
and knowing your students well and helping them understand their own goals and helping them achieve those goals. So those are all very human things, right? To be able to empathize with another.
yeah.
AI can simulate those things,
Mhm.
but it cannot do them authentically. It can mimic warmth and responsiveness and understanding. But
Yeah,
as we mentioned before, um, it can do that in a way that's without any kind of real human friction, without any pushback, without any sort of disagreement. I mean, the AI algorithms are programmed to keep you engaged, to keep you interacting. And so particularly when I think about our younger learners, I think they're very at risk for replacing human interaction with these artificial interactions, and they are not the same, right? An interaction with an AI tool, it can perform or pretend to care, but it's not genuine care.
yeah.
So I don't think AI could ever truly replace these qualities, but I think it can simulate it so well that we have to be careful, because that can lead to students to isolating themselves, replacing real human interaction with these artificial interactions, because they can be easier. Because they don't have the friction we were talking about. They don't involve necessarily the struggle or the negotiation.
Sure. Yes, yeah.
But the beauty and learning come from the struggle and the negotiation. So you have to be really, really careful. AI tools are designed to keep us engaged with them. And they can simulate human interaction, but they are not human interaction.
Perfect. Such a marvelous answer, and magnificently you cover many areas integrated with the AI and your experience. Well, let me just follow up with your answers as you came up. Can AI be the death of creativity in future? How do you see this?
Oh gosh. Well, certainly I hope not. I think it depends on how you use it. So I think AI misused means that humans are just completely outsourcing thought and creativity to the AI tool
Yeah.
and just relying on its output without even looking at it or without even critiquing it.
Yeah.
And so that's a risk, right? That's certainly a risk. But hopefully what we'll be doing in education is helping students think about what they want to be able to do, the value of their own knowledge, the value of their own creativity. And certainly there are places where AI tools can be used to elevate their own thinking and creativity as a thought partner, perhaps. But I think that that requires intention and it requires explicit teaching of discernment to know the difference. Um, and I think we have to, as humans, we have to be really careful to not outsource all of that really great creative stuff. Um, so I don't think it will be the death of us, but I think we are at risk. And I think a portion of learners who maybe don't feel connected to their teachers, to their learning communities, or don't have appropriate support systems, relationships, they might be very tempted to reach for those tools in ways that are not appropriate, and maybe not safe
Yeah.
and not beneficial for their growth.
Great growth. Yeah. Mhm. As personally, let me just share my experience as I'm educator and I'm also serving as academic director in a British school right here in Saudi Arabia. So,
Mhm.
like same here, planning curriculum, designing lesson planning, and all stuff. So sometimes somehow we may face uncertainties while planning or some different new creative innovative lesson plannings for the teachers or newly teachers who are not that much modernized or not that much linked with the tools that are using in AI or the technologies that are using inside the classroom management. But what I observe that always like 90%, teachers, I would say, they prefer using AI tools rather just by clicking and not even creating new ideas, not even just thinking about the psychology of the students, that what is the level of their mind and what psychology they need to be applying inside the classroom. As a teacher, it's highly important for us to recognize the level of, for example, if I'm teaching like for the primary level, other than secondary level, so it's quite different. Like
Yeah.
there is a famous theory, Jane Paget theory, Swiss philosopher, who just explained it in a very clear way. The stages for learning in the classroom management linked with the education. So how the educator or teachers are supposed to teach or apply different tools and approaches and methodologies inside the classroom. But that time there was no concept of AI, but it's recently the AI just came into the market in a global market. So it just, replicated a lot of things and most of the qualities that teacher had, but right now they're specifically and primarily focusing on AI, which I believe that it's not that much good. I face uncertainty by mean that there are some teachers like they just focusing primarily on the context, and they just thought about the questions and ask from the chat GPT and just click copy and paste and just giving it to the teacher or students. Interestingly, one thing that happened in my career when I was teaching a grade secondary level. So on university level, there was one paper inside the English department, which is a literature subject, which is highly influential and very important and creative subject, where you need a lot of thinking to create new ideas. Literature as compared to linguistics is very difficult. I came across that the whole paper was fully prepared by the help of AI. Can you imagine?
Mhm.
So this is what you will be feeling as educator, as a researcher, that where we are heading towards. Like I just mentioned in earlier conversation that only 10% educators are very rare and good researchers, and they just, of course, use the AI tools, but they try to replicate and they try to use their minds in more creative way and more innovative way, rather to be a good critical thinker. Don't you think that we can reduce and minimize this ratio in the global market by producing different workshops or different opportunities for the teachers to train them how to use AI in the modern teaching methodologies or in classroom management, or how can we reduce this? Because we are educators, we are researchers, we are planning and thinking about the futures of the new generations or new youngster who will coming into this field. So, as a researcher, as a director, as a teacher, as a policymaker, what specific strategy would you implement for the coming generations to use this
Yeah.
AI tool in a very positive way?
Yeah, and your story about the teacher who just generates the questions
Yeah,
for AI from AI and gives them to the students
yeah,
is a really, it's kind of a unfortunately classic example of the misuse of AI. Just like we don't want students misusing AI, that feels like the misuse of AI on the teacher's part because teaching is not a one size fits all um, kind of project. In other words, I can't produce a lesson and then give it to students, all different ages, all different backgrounds. That's not good teaching. Good teaching involves planning for your students, thinking about your students and your classroom as a rhetorical situation. Who are they? What do they need? What are their particular skills? How do they learn? How should I group them? So you can certainly encourage teachers to use AI to help prepare some of the materials or to get their thinking going. If they're struggling with an idea for an exciting lesson, certainly those can be great tools. But just because the tools exist doesn't mean we should always use them, and it certainly doesn't mean that we should use them to outsource all of the work. I think of using AI tools in my own teaching as when there are things that busy work kind of things. I can take the easy things off my plate, but the thinking about designing a lesson that accounts for who are the students in my class, what do they need, what are they trying to achieve,
mhm,
how should I help them collaborate? AI can't do that for me. AI doesn't know my students.
yeah,
And I certainly don't want to be putting information about my students into an AI tool, right? I mean, that's a huge
yeah,
privacy issue. So certainly
yeah.
that's not the
Absolutely right.
solution.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But how do you prepare teachers to not take the shortcut? It's the same question as how do we prepare students to not
Yeah.
take the shortcut,
Mhm.
right? And that I think comes down to either teacher preparation or ongoing professional learning if people are already teaching about where these tools are helpful, where you can use them to push your creativity or get some of efficiency on easy tasks, but to never relinquish the art of teaching. And the art of teaching comes down to that human connection and knowing your students well.
Mhm.
That's something that AI simply doesn't have and will never have.
Mhm.
Um, and you wouldn't want it to have. Who would want to give that part up? That's the beautiful part of teaching, that
Exactly.
that connection you have in the classroom with these
Yeah.
students, where
Mhm.
you can pull their lived experiences into the activity or the
Yeah.
presentation,
Yeah.
or the project that they're developing. Certainly use the tools in ways that work, but
Yeah.
don't outsource the art of teaching.
This is what, like as you mentioned, connection matters a lot in teaching. As a teacher, a teacher must be emotionally connected with the students.
Yeah.
Social emotional learning, which we call it social emotional learning, which is highly important for every teachers or every
Yeah.
educators.
Yeah.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah. Thank you very much for such a wonderful answer and such a wonderful feedback that's being given by you. So highly grateful, and it's highly encouraging for the newly teachers who want to come in this field or who are very passionate. Passionism is something different, but I also observed and experienced there are some teachers who just teaching not passionately, but just to teach for the students to be a good teacher or just to be a teacher.
There's all kinds of teachers and all kinds of
Yeah,
really good teachers, right? Um,
yeah.
but the connection, I think, is the point.
Connection,
Like, I think,
connection is the point.
yeah,
Yeah.
knowing your students well and helping them understand what their goals for learning are
Yeah.
and the value of learning so that you can customize what you're doing to meet those
Well,
needs.
one more thing, just came to my mind. Based on my experience, I was just training professionals, like they were PhD holders, by the way.
Mhm.
So in Pakistan, and I was training them, providing training, IELTS training, TOEFL training, specifically IELTS writing, which is something like a professional test for the studies.
Mm.
I came across even in essay writing, which is something very, a very subjective part. So I found when I was checking essays, so I found even though a PhD scholar holding a PhD degree had a lot of, errors in writing, or, I thought that where is the gap?
Yeah.
Where do we feel this gap? Like if I'm holding a PhD degree in the English department and I'm having a PhD in English linguistics, but I'm also afraid of writing an essay on any topic. So, as a policymaker and as a researcher, how do you see these situations as a scholar?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's such an interesting point because what AI has taken out of a lot of the writing that students submit, a lot of the multilingual writing is it's taken out all of those grammatical errors, right? Because it can
oh,
polish them up for them. Now, I have kind of complex thinking on that. First of all, I don't see a grammatical mistake necessarily as a reflection of someone's intelligence
yeah,
or as a detraction from the meaning that they're trying to convey. The only, my bar for prescriptive grammar lines, sort of aligns with when the meaning becomes unclear. I
yeah,
need it to be clear. As long as I can understand what the writer is trying to say, that's the point. Writing is communication. Um, so, you see a lot of those sort of, everyone has their own idiosyncrasies in writing and in grammatical style, et
yeah.
cetera.
Mhm.
Um, those have disappeared with the advent of things like Grammarly or in various AI tools to check people's writing. Um, but because I know that people who are writing in a language which is not their own, even after they've had, received advanced degrees,
Yeah.
we all still can make mistakes.
Yes, yeah,
I think that there's a lot of concern about how those mistakes are received. And that goes back to who is the reader, who is the professor, who is the evaluator, and will they be judged harshly because of those mistakes? So there are a lot of sort of old-fashioned kind of red pen thinkers who evaluate writing as it's either perfect or it's not, right? And a grammatical mistake, historically was judged harshly. And I don't think that should be the case, right? I don't think that should be the case. And so when I'm working with educators, thinking about, for example, rubrics for how we assess writing, I've seen so many rubrics that say, oh, there are 3 to 5 mistakes in grammar. What? Who cares? Who wants to count mistakes in
yeah,
grammar?
of
That has
course,
nothing to do with meaning.
yeah,
And have you taught all of English grammar, everything about it to someone that you could then hold them up to the standard
yeah.
of making no mistakes?
Mhm,
Like what, there's no value in that except to make people feel afraid.
mhm.
Whereas say, if you've been teaching language structures or some particular aspect of writing, then you can evaluate that thing you taught
Mm,
and its use, but
yeah,
you should never evaluate someone on just the absolute absence of mistakes. That's the kind of culture that pushes students to use tools and sometimes to use them inappropriately. So
yeah,
I think that, we speak with accents. We all speak with an accent. I speak English with an accent, right? Even though English is my first language and I was born in the United States of America, certainly anyone in Great Britain
yeah,
recognizes that I'm American, and anyone in America recognizes that I'm from the Northeast,
yeah,
right? So everyone's language is accented, but everyone's writing is also accented in my mind towards their identity and their experience and their linguistic backgrounds. And
yeah.
I think we should create more space for that to be okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's something very important and essential in this way, specifically as you mentioned, the gap.
Mm.
So we always like, like I would say, may not be a judgmental, of course, but there are some, things they judge
Yeah.
educators based on their grammars. Grammar doesn't make any sense, like, as you mentioned in a very clear way. So thank you very much for such a wonderful answer and feedback. So last question, but not least. Okay, so what is your vision for ensuring the educator remains deeply human while integrating the opportunities for technological innovations in future?
Yeah, thank you. Well, what I've been trying to convey to me is that teaching has always been a deeply human endeavor about connecting people and connecting, especially in language education, connecting people across
Yeah,
languages. That's a deeply human way that we connect to each other. So I think technological innovation is pushing the way we assess knowledge, the way we ask people to ask our students to show that they have learned knowledge. We have to change the way we are assessing them. Um, but we might even be changing what knowledge we think students need
Yeah.
because they have access to so much information, right?
Mhm.
I don't know the answer to that part of the question yet. I think we're all going to be thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
But what I can say is that learning is an opportunity to care for the learner, not just intellectually, but as a human, as a person who thrives by connecting to other humans, who learns to navigate tensions with other humans and come out on the other side successfully. And so that is about the relationship that teachers and students have, and students have. And
Mhm.
I think to maintain that, I think there need to be systems in place at institutional and societal levels that allow teachers the time and space to plan
Yeah.
and teach the students who are in their room, right? Not just teach them like here's a curriculum, go teach this, but maybe here's a curriculum, adapt it to your particular students,
Yeah.
give them agency in that process, because I think that also makes it a very human endeavor instead of a factory job, so to speak.
Yeah, very wonderful. Thank you very much for such a wonderful, magnificent, and insightful session right here. And we are
Thank
so
you.
happy and so obliged and so grateful to have you on our platform. And of course, we are hoping that we'll be having such a great and incredible sessions ahead in future with different topics to cover different areas to make it much more easier for the new educators or the new teachers who want to be in this field. Or I'm highly grateful on the behalf of TESOL Talent Academy and all the professionals and teachers. We're so glad to have you with us and in our team, and we are so happy that we just thriving and striving to learn new things from each other. As you mentioned, that we are educators, we're not perfect. We are trying to learn from each other's, and sky is only the limit. So,
Absolutely. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you for the warm invitation. It's lovely to chat with you. And, I really do enjoy the conversation with other educators. We truly can learn so much from each other. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
a great time. It's been a great discussion with you. Have a great time. Thank you, audience, for your time. Thank you, audience, for watching us. And soon, inshallah, we'll be publishing it. And once again, highly grateful for your time, precious time that you just spared out for us.
Thank you. Thank you. Take good care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.